Mamousia thou art no Thylane, improving foresight may be in vain. The best laid schemes, O my sin men, gang off ugly, and lay us not but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, thou art blessed compared with me. The present only toucheth thee, but I backward cast my eye on prospects drear, and forward though I cannot see, I guess and fear. You know, it's a sad day in Mudville when I'm quoting poetry as a teaser. Hi, my name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 225. We are living the real estate dream. So, for you uneducated cretins in the audience, that was To a Mouse by Robert Burns. And it's really sort of depressive way to come into the podcast, and I just want to let you guys know that everything is doing okay, just not as is expected. And it seems to be the theme of this week. Now, so last week and everything like that, we were talking about the Benzers and this and that and how to deal with this. And well, now we've crested that wave. We are now moving on to the next part of this particular closing, which was supposed to happen today, but we get a call. And that call's coming in from the other side, and it's actually technically from the lender. And the lender is stating that, hey, we just caught something that we, the lenders, should have done weeks ago, and we are scrambling to get it done. Very apologetic. You know, the lender on this particular deal is taking complete ownership of this, even though it was not his particular task to perform. You know, one, full disclosure, the guy's a Marine, all right? So he's like, I don't like to micromanage these people. This person is very, very experienced, but still, it happened, and this is what we're trying to do to fix the situation. And full communication on his side. Learned about this while I was like literally sitting with my client yesterday, having breakfast after she signed. And it's like, hey, this is that and the other thing. And I glanced down, and there's a text, hey, we got a problem. I'm like, okay, tell me more, you know. So we'll see how this thing, we're still going to close, all right? It's just a matter we're not closing today, all right? We're trying to close tomorrow. We are waiting on various people out there somewhere in the great United States of America to perform a task, all right? And that task needs to be performed by third parties who are unrelated to the transaction. And basically we're waiting for Gladys in HR to put down her donut and her coffee and toddle over to her computer and fill out a digital form and hit send. All right. And, you know, we've had this problem before with other employers, other deals, other issues. One of the things that the lenders do when they're going to give you money is they want to make sure that what you have told them is accurate. Remember, because of the, the laws that were written after the crash, it's actually the lender's responsibility to not catch you lying to them. And yeah, only Congress could come up with a solution to that. And I always joke that the reason why these guys lenders get it so bad is because their lobbyists did not pay enough when it was time to point the finger, and everybody started ponying up large amounts of cash to Congress critters going, don't look at us, look at them. And the lenders really, and you'd think the banks would have been better at that. But I also think in a lot of cases, this is just an editorial aside, a lot of regulations in government today. All right, you can ask anybody on this. Just don't ask big corporations because they will lie. When big organizations get caught, they go up in front of Congress, they get yelled at by Congress critters, they look very bashful and sheepish, and they say, well, we really just need more regulations. In fact, we should have the kind of regulations on us that it would take a platoon of attorneys to wade through. You guys have that ability to put this burden upon us, and we beseech you, punish us for our sins. Whip me harder, Daddy. And what happens is they literally lock out everybody else out of the industry, because a startup cannot hire the platoon of attorneys to wade through all that bureaucratic red tape, but the big Fortune 500 companies can. And this is just how the game gets played. Congress knows this is what's going to happen. Big banks know this is going to happen. Big lenders know this is going to happen. And the little guys know this is going to happen. But ultimately, I really should not do this after karaoke. But ultimately, it just represses the entry of new companies into that particular market. Right? But Congress gets to go, hey, we showed them, and, the big banks go, oh boy, we were really put down upon, and da-da-da-da-da, and we were ever so sorry, but it's just is what it is. So in this particular case, it is the bank's and the lender's responsibility to call up for, HR company departments of companies that the borrower worked in 3 or 4 years ago and say, hey, can we get this document, verification of employment? We want to make sure that the time period that this guy said he was working, he was actually working. Which means now we're waiting on Gladys. So, not very uncommon, all right, but definitely something you do very early on in the process when you're on the lender side. So, and nothing on the seller side. This is one of the problems with being on the seller side. Is there's a whole bunch of things that are going you have zero control over. It's just going to happen. Just lay back and think of England. All right. And so it's you really got to get sort of, I don't want to use the term blasé, right? But you just have to accept that this is part of what reality is. Okay. And that there are things that are going to be outside of our hands. We work the things that we can work, and we have to trust our fellow partners in this transaction to be doing their parts. All right. Title of this episode is Semper Gumby, which means always flexible in Celticese. That was the unofficial motto of my choir. It was something, I can't remember how it got stuck in my head, but it's probably I probably heard it in the Marine Corps once. We always got to be loose. We always got to be flexible. We got to understand that, nothing is set in stone until it's set in stone. And then it's not set in stone until after the check clears. Got it? All right. So, speaking of not set in stone, good news this week. All right, you guys have heard my rants before about National Association of Realtors and their Article 15 and their rule that they came out a couple years ago in the woke frenzy. Now, hey, let's say this. There was for those guys who don't remember the story, there was an investigative report done in New York State about realtors steering minorities away from certain houses and into other neighborhoods, right? That was considered discrimination by that article. There was a whole bunch of secret shoppers did this, okay, and they came back with various stories of this is what happened. And I read the article cover to cover. I noticed in several cases the big agents who were working for big brokerages were not allowed to respond. All right. Instead, the brokerage, the very large company, had their PR department respond. And it was we would never do that over here at da-da-da. And we teach our agents, we hold them to the highest accountable standards and yada-da-da-da-da-da. It was only a couple of the smaller brokers, a little mom and pop shop, where the broker could actually come up and actually say, hey, this is what's going on. This is why this article is wrong. Okay. But it really, really stirred up a hornet's nest nationally in the Association of Realtors. So, National Association of Realtors is incredibly skittish about this particular topic, mostly because they were actually born as a racist organization to keep blacks out of white neighborhoods. All right, I got the receipts on that. All right, one of these days when NAR actually hits me with a cease and desist, we will tell that story. Okay, but until then, you just do your own research, boys and girls. But ever since, and especially the Civil Rights Acts in the 60s and this and that and the other thing, this is not how NAR works anymore. But they're still very skittish about talking about that at all. So when that article came out, there was a whole bunch of reflexive action on part of NAR, right? One of which was a new ruling and regulation by the National Association of Realtors that a realtor cannot in any way, shape, or form say anything to offend anybody in any of the protected classes. All right. Even on their own time and in their own social networks. Well, even if they're not identifying themselves, just the very fact that where they are means that they are covered. Their behavior is open to regulation 24/7. Right. Now, it's a very, very broad written. Okay. It is like one of those little, it's ironic they call it an Article 15. In the Royal Navy, they used to call it the captain's cloak. Okay. We're going to punish you for anything we come up with. All right. And it was purely in the ear of the offended, whether or not there was harassment stated. An agent could say, God bless. Oh my God, you're oppressing me in my atheism, and then file a report. All right. There was a pastor who got kicked out of the association, not because of anything he said on the pulpit as the pastor of a church exercising his freedom of religion, but the fact that his church, little quorum up there, decided they were not going to be a part of a free lunch program for 1 month. Because that month was Pride Month, and they wanted to put little pride flags and pride pamphlets in the lunch bags. And they said, hey, we as a church don't support this. We're stepping back for a month. You do you. We'll be back next month. And somebody filed a complaint against the pastor, who was not on the board that made that decision. And because the pastor refused to resign his position, all right, and some people might say, forsake Jesus Christ. All right. He lost, his membership in NAR. There was another guy out in Virginia. There was a conversation going on about a Civil War memorial in the center of his town. He made a comment. Hey, that statue means different things to different people. Gone. Right. So this is the extremes that this particular rule has been enforced at. These are not one-offs. Okay. This is not just, that's just anecdotal evidence, right? The plural of anecdotal evidence is actually data, people. All right. Just because you don't have a, Harvard running a study of 10,000 realtors and whatnot and on a blind two-sided taste test or anything does not mean that this is not actually how this has been enforced. So, the great state of Texas. God bless Texas. All right. And we're not just talking about Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders here. All right. They actually have a law that they are working on stating that trade organizations, which NAR falls under, may not in any way, shape, or form repress the civil rights of their members, to include freedom of speech. If they do so, they are open to liability and personal lawsuits. So guess what? All of a sudden, we're gonna review our rules. All right. So they are considering that code of ethics change. All right. It has to, some of the changes are it has to be specific as a realtor. I don't want those people in my neighborhood, or as a realtor, it's not going to affect the person's own time, and it's not going to be open to a broad interpretation of what harassment is. All right. Because everybody gets harassed by everything. I get harassed by stupid bumper stickers who take very complex ideas and compile it down to one stupid little line so people can pass it around and feel like they're smart, Visualize world peace. Well, yeah, it's called the desolate wasteland of the dead. So, anyway, so this is interesting news. I'm going to be following that quite a lot. That actually makes me feel pretty good about life right now. So, the numbers, not so much. Okay, so things are actually slowing down as we see it now, because we are going into the summer doldrums, right? Not to be confused with the winter doldrums, all right? But actives this week are 26,328, down 29. New listings this week are 1,943, down 284. We've been the entire month of May. We've seen a slide on new listings coming down. The faucet going into the tub is slowly getting slower and slower. Funny story there. All right. Contracts this week are 21,061. Okay. Which is down 244, which means that's also starting to slow up. Okay. So not only is the water going into the tub slower, but the drain itself is getting clogged with all those long hairs. All right. Closing this week are 1,549. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 558, signaling there's less water in the pipe to come out of that faucet. All right. Our comfort report numbers are at 109.2 for supply. Our demand is at 80.2. And that means that we are actually at 73.4 for comfort numbers. So the tub is still rising. All right, guys. And then we go to our little regional areas and check this out. I've been saying Chandler's been leading the pack for I can't remember. All right. They got overtaken by Fountain Hills this week. Fountain Hills is now leading the pack at 120.2, up 6% from last month, right? From where they're at 113. They are moving ahead into a seller's market. But Chandler is still technically in the seller's market at 115.4. But if they continue at this drop rate, maybe next week, the week after, they will be in a balanced market. Avondale, pretty much they were also dropping. Maybe Chandler will slip below Avondale. Avondale will move into number 2. Paradise Valley is a balanced market, but we don't care because they're rich and I don't have any listings out there. All right, but let's talk Phoenix, Glendale, Scottsdale, Gilbert, Mesa, Tempe, and Cave Creek are all in our balanced markets, with Peoria, Goodyear, Surprise, Queen Creek, Buckeye, and Maricopa being in your buyer's markets, right? So once again, same as last week, Fountain Hills, Goodyear, Buckeye, Maricopa, all rising, all on the outskirts, all neighborhoods that I'd consider best bang for your buck. You want big houses and small prices. Those are the areas people are going to. You want luxury houses at smaller prices, you're going to Fountain Hills, right? And these numbers are starting to slow up. The deltas are starting to slow up. All right. We're starting to see maybe this little market thing is ending out. Now, we are still talking about bond rates. We're still talking about tariffs impacting bond rates. It is the duel of the competing narratives. All right. I see 2 different articles about the exact same report, and both articles cherry pick different highlights out of it about whether or not it's the tariffs or whether or not it's the spending. All right. The big beautiful bill in the quote of Elon Musk is you can either have it big or you can have it beautiful. You can't have it both. All right. Congress is apparently not locked in any of the budget cuts that were suggested by Doge. All right. Which is affecting. Hey, Moody's just came out and said, we are starting to wonder if you could pay off your debt at the rate you're running up your debt. And Congress basically said, yeah, just put it on the card. Don't worry, my kid's paying that card. Not me. I'm going to be dead in 10 years. All right. I don't care. So, but still, interest rates have popped up over 7 again on the conventional side. All right. Which means that if you have a really good lender, you're going to be in the high 6s. All right. Remember, whatever they quote you on the internet, a regular lender can get you less. Unless it's a builder. Builders are actually, they're the one-offs, right? Because they're loaning their own money and they got their own little game. So what does this mean to you, the viewer of this? Well, it means I'm going to continue to keep having these conversations. We're going to be here for quite a while. If you aren't in a position to buy now, like you can make the mortgage payments at the rates they currently are, it's still a really good time to get in front of something. Like seriously. All right, because those rates start dropping down, the inventory's there, the buyers aren't. When all those buyers start coming in, you're going to see stuff flying off the shelves. All right, and then you wait and you refi at the lower rate, but you already got your house, and now you're getting all the appreciation of that sudden bidding war that's going to happen. Actually saw a couple of those last week. All right, whether or not they've, very specific, but they were also out in the hinterlands, Santan. Okay, that area. So that's why those areas are starting to rise out there. Okay, people are realizing that's where the deals are at. So what else? Oh, one other last thing I wanted to share with you. In the show notes below is going to be that Robert Burns poem. I strongly encourage you to read it. Because I love you, I did not try to do that in a Scottish accent because my Scottish whenever I try to do an accent of the British Isles, we're suddenly going on a tour. All right. And in a sentence, I can go from Glasgow to the West End to Dublin. and back north to Belfast. All right, I'm just all over the place. I've never been able to do any kind of the English language accents except for the South. That one I got down pretty good. But ultimately, read it. Read more poetry, people. The other, I was also seriously considered leaning in with this with something like Kipling. Like there's Tommy. Because, hey, let's just be honest. I was at the out in front of a Fry's, shaking my little can, trying to sell poppies, poppies for the veterans kind of stuff. And I just had that poem running in my head the entire time. And maybe I'll memorize it and just start doing, next year I'll just like get on a soapbox and start reciting that over and over again. But that's in the show notes. The other one is there's going to be a link to a podcast of Michael Heaton. Okay, and I've referenced him before. He's got a great episode this week about real estate in Japan. And why are their houses so damn cheap? And why are their apartments so damn cheap in Tokyo? It literally has a bit to do with culture. All right, it has a bit to do with culture because they do not see their houses as an investment. They think of them as a commodity, and it's something that you use, and then when you're done with it, you get a new one. All right, so they also do not have rezoning, right? They only have like 17 different zoning areas in the entire country. We have something like 17,000, right? New York City alone has 170 different zoning areas. Like, oh, this is historical, this is 1920s historical, this is whatever, this is semi-commercial with some overhead living, whatever the kind of thing. So they got very, very simplified. It's very easy to build a new house. It's very easy to tear an old house down. Nobody's going to sit there and go, oh, that's a historical monument. And I think, this is just my editorial aside, I think the reason is because in Japan, they don't build houses to last because they expect it to fall down the next earthquake. And that is a very, very cultural thing that has been ingrained in them. They didn't get modern building practices until early 1900s, late 1800s. And even then, it took them a while to figure out how to make sure that the houses did not fall down because they're trying to build European-style houses in Japan where you have a 7.5 earthquake every once in a while and fires. All right? So there was an impermanence to Japanese housing that I think carries over in the way they deal with housing and shelter and the commodity called shelter and how they provide for it. That we just don't have here because we have a European concept of housing, and in European, you could have a stone house that your great-grandfather was born in and your family's still living there, if you're the eldest son, or the surviving child. All right. But everybody else got kicked out and had to go to the Americas and build their own stone house and to pass that down through the generations. Right. But Japan, you didn't have that option. That building lasted like 5-10 seasons or so, and then a typhoon would come into it and wash it into the next province. So, all right. While I've been doing this, I've been getting nothing but texts from various people who, strangely enough, could not get a hold of me all day until it's time to actually get a hold of me. Okay, so what does that mean to you? Hey, watch your children and pets around water. I was at a swim party on Sunday. There was a child. My fun and enjoyment was literally reduced by the fact that I had to sit there with one eye watching that kid the entire time like a chameleon scanning a grasshopper. All right. Fortunately, there was no pets. All right. Nothing. There was something flooded on the way to work. I don't know. I think somebody lost a water main or something like that, but I did not drive into it. I drove around it. All right. And obviously this week I am working my circles like a big dog. I hope you do too. Little aside, if you're driving to work and there's nothing on the news, put on classical music. It's incredibly soothing. All right. And I want you guys to have a great weekend. And hopefully next week I'll tell you about the joys of getting this sucker closed.